on the control. By Chuck E. Cheese's.
Last week, I went to a drive-in screening in Tustin, California. It was hosted by the Frida Cinema, who is an independent theater located in Santa Ana, and yeah, it was a fun time. The place where we went to see the screening was like this really weird business area, and there were like a lot of business buildings, and then we went and saw the screening up on top of like this parking structure, and it was like on an inflatable screen. And in first glance, we were kind of like a little iffy on this because, you know, this doesn't really sound like the ideal way to watch a drive-in movie. But, you know, it was actually really cool. But yeah, I went with some buddies of mine, and we went and saw two films. Those films I will be talking about today. So let's go ahead and get this shit started. Let's fucking go! I don't know why I walked away. That was really weird. The two films that we saw at this drive-in were Willy's Wonder World, Willy's Wonderland, Willy Wally Wonder. What the fuck is this movie called? I feel like this movie like has 4 different names, and I don't know which one it is. It's Willy's Wonderland. That's the first one we saw. Willy's Wonderland. The film is directed by Kevin Lewis and stars Nicolas Cage. It apparently went through a lot of names before it became the film title that it is today. According to IMDb, it was also once called Wally's Wonderland. Willy's Wonderland almost kind of plays like a Five Nights at Freddy's movie adaptation, and it takes place almost entirely in like a Chuck E. Cheese-esque building. Basically just consists of Nicolas Cage fighting off a bunch of evil animatronics. And that's kind of the whole movie. Oh shit. The film is about a quiet drifter who is tricked into a janitorial job at the now condemned Willy's Wonderland. The mundane tasks suddenly become an all-out fight for survival against wave after wave of demonic animatronics. Fists fly, kicks land, titans clash, and only one side will make it out alive. That was a description on IMDb. I guess that's kind of how you would describe this movie. I don't know. One really cool thing that I would like to point out before I even talk about this film is that the writer G.O. Parsons was actually at the screening that we went to. It was really cool. He did like a whole introduction before the film started.
G.O. Parsons, would you like to come out and say something to the Frida Cinema crowd? Everybody give a big hand to G.O. Parsons. Hey guys, everybody, thank you so much for coming on out. First time I'm going to get to see it on the big screen, and I'm glad I get to spend it all or see it with you guys.
Yeah, he got to talk a little bit about it, and apparently this is a passion project of his, according to him, and this is a film that he's been trying to get made pretty much, you know, for a good amount of his life.
It was a passion project. I worked like my whole life to try and get this up on the screen, and I finally did it. So if you have a dream, believe in yourself. You can make it come true. Thank you to the Frida Cinema for having me. You guys feel free to hoot, holler, honk your horn, scream, yell. That's the way this movie is intended to be shown. Thank you very much. Have fun, everyone. Have fun.
Thank you.
You got it.
So, you know, the fact that this is made is probably really cool for him. The script for this film, obviously, you know, he wrote the script for the film. Was featured on a list, I think it's called the Blood List, which is basically a list of highly anticipated genre films, like horror films, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever. It's kind of like the equivalent of the Hollywood, not Blacklist, what the fuck is that called? Like the Hollywood, like where screenplays go and nobody picks them up, and like they're like in this, what the fuck is this shit? I know that a lot of people, when they first see this film and think about this film, are going to think, you know, you can't help but think about the similarities between this and Five Nights at Freddy's. So I just kind of want to point this out before I talk about the film. Like I said, this was a passion project for G.O. Parsons. This was, I guess, a movie he's been trying to make for a while. I don't know if he wrote this screenplay before the idea of Five Nights at Freddy's came out. I think Five Nights at Freddy's came out in 2014. So I don't know, you know, if this is something that he wrote before the game came out. I'm thinking that is the case because, like I said, this, you know, he said this was a passion project of his. But there is, you know, quite a bit of similarities between this and Five Nights at Freddy's. I think that could also explain why it took such a long time for this film to get made, was maybe because Five Nights at Freddy's came out and then he maybe got a little bit discouraged, and that's how the screenplay ended up in the blood list of films that are yet to be made. As far as similarities between this and Five Nights at Freddy's go, I mean, obviously they're there, you know, it's basically the same exact general concept. You know, you have this guy who is doing like this night shift in this weird animatronic kids thing. And another really interesting thing about this is that Nicolas Cage has little to no speaking lines in this film. He actually doesn't say much of anything. I was actually really enjoying this movie in about the first 20 minutes. I was actually vibing with this a lot. You know, it just consisted of Nicolas Cage not speaking, you know, he's just kind of cleaning up, doing janitorial stuff. He'll occasionally go to like the pinball machine. That's like his thing in this movie, is he loves playing pinball, so we'll cut to him playing pinball for no reason, which I thought was really fun. But yeah, it's really strange because out of nowhere it just starts happening where you know, animatronics all of a sudden just start, you know, attacking Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage fights them. And, you know, Nicolas Cage has no speaking lines, so we don't really know what he's thinking, you know, when these things are attacking him. There's a scene early on in the movie where Nicolas Cage is fighting, I think, a gorilla animatronic in the bathroom, and it's really fun, and it just comes out of nowhere, and then after he's done beating the shit out of it, he just kind of goes back to doing, like, all of his janitorial jobs, and he goes back to playing the pinball machine. And I was really enjoying where this movie was going. I don't know where the fuck it was going, but I was enjoying myself a lot. Hang on, let me wait for this fucking airplane to go by, because it's really fucking with my video. We are then introduced to a bunch of teenager characters who kind of take up a good amount of the screen time once they are introduced. To be honest, I don't really remember much of these characters other than they were just a group of teenagers who somehow knew about these animatronics, you know, killing people. They take up a good runtime of the movie, and honestly, these characters I could not care for at all. In fact, most of the characters within this group was really annoying, and I like I said, just did not care for them. I did not care if they died or not. In fact, I was kind of rooting for them to die just because I just did not give a fuck about them at all, which maybe is the point, but like at the same time, why would you focus on these characters throughout most of your movie when you have Nicolas Cage, who is definitely like a much more interesting character, and you could do a lot more with that character. Like I said, I was really liking the movie when it was, you know, just kind of focusing on Nicolas Cage fighting these animatronics and then playing fucking pinball, as opposed to like this Scooby-Doo-esque group of kids who are like trying to get down to the mystery of these animatronics killing all these people. And of course I run into Nicolas Cage in this Willy's Wonderland thing. They kind of tell him like, hey, these animatronics are out to kill you, you know, nobody's ever made it out alive, blah blah blah. And of course, Nicolas Cage doesn't say anything because he has no fucking speaking lines in this movie. Another problem that I had with this movie is that there is a lot of exposition. There's a lot of exposition scenes where the characters are kind of like explaining why these animatronics are coming to life and attacking all these people, and I really did not care for that stuff at all. The exposition stuff was really bad, and there's a lot of it too. There's a lot of trying to justify why these animatronics are coming back to life, when honestly, I kind of would have liked it if they just did not explain it. I just feel like that would be better than what they ended up coming up with in the film. The film is also riddled with a bunch of just tropes and conventions that you've seen in pretty much any horror film like this, which was really disappointing to see. A lot of it is just stuff that we've already seen before, and it's not done any better. It's not doing anything new. There are a couple of fun moments in this film, but those fun moments are often interrupted by, you know, your conventional horror tropes and cliches that come about throughout a lot of the runtime of this film. The teens honestly just really fucking bothered me. Like, yeah, their dialogue, their performances, everything about them was just really, I was not vibing with it at all. I really did not care for a single character in this film other than Nicolas Cage. And like I said, I love Nicolas Cage in this film. The main problem with the film, I think, is that there is just not enough Nicolas Cage in here, which is the reason why, you know, we're all going out to see this film, is to see Nicolas Cage craziness. We want to see Nicolas Cage be batshit crazy. But yeah, the backstory behind why these animatronics are coming back to life is pretty kind of lame and just super bare bones, and I just did not give a shit at all. It was just the most basic stuff. Like, it's exactly what you would expect from a movie like this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comparisons to this film with previous films that came out a couple years ago, like Mandy and Color Out of Space. And yeah, it is kind of in the same vein as those. It's just not quite as good as either of those films, in my opinion. Definitely not as good as Mandy. I think Mandy is just a far superior and more interesting experience than whatever this was. But that's not to say I didn't have a little bit of fun. I had a blast whenever Nicolas Cage was beating the shit out of one of those animatronics. And every time Nicolas Cage was on screen, as little as it happened, every time he was on screen, I was enjoying myself quite a bit. Every time he just came up, I was like, yes, now we're getting to the good shit. The film was also pretty well shot for the most part. There was some pretty good cinematography. Honestly, like, my favorite scenes in this entire film were the pinball machine scenes. Every time Nicolas Cage went to play pinball, I was just fucking cheering, you know, that shit was fucking awesome. Especially one scene that happens later on in the film, where he's playing pinball. That was probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. I fucking adored it. But yeah, overall, Wally's fucking Willy Worldland was alright. It was alright. This is probably not a film that I'm going to go out and seek and, like, watch frequently by any means. I honestly didn't quite care for it as much as I wanted to, which is unfortunate. It had some good stuff in it, but it just did not reach its full potential in my opinion, which is a shame because I know the writer's been trying to make this film and get it out for quite a while now, and this is like a big passion project of his. By the way, I forgot to bring this up, but the writer of the film actually ended up being in the car right next to us at the drive-in, so we were sitting right next to him. Which was pretty cool. I was also debating on going up to him and like asking him for an interview for this video, but then I decided against it because I was like, you know, if COVID wasn't happening, if there weren't already just a bunch of people who were up there talking to him, I probably would have done it, but I just didn't want to bother the guy, you know. Good for him for finally getting the film out there and doing his thing, but overall, I'm probably going to give the film a 6 out of 10. It was alright, you know. I won't be watching this anytime soon, probably. It's just, it's there. It's there. The second film that we watched at this special drive-in screening, double feature thing, whatever the fuck, was Psycho Goreman. Psycho Goreman is directed by Steven Kostanski. That's the guy who did it. He's the guy who's responsible for films such as The Void, which is a film that came out a couple of years ago that I kind of enjoyed, you know. I appreciated it more than I would say I loved it. He also directed a movie back in 2011 called Manborg, and Manborg is really, really fun. It's like about this half man, half machine thing who like is fighting a bunch of really interesting characters. It's a really fun movie. He's known for doing stuff like this, essentially, but I really like his style of filmmaking. He's also done a bunch of anthologies such as Father's Day and The ABCs of Death 2. I'm pretty sure he did a segment in that one as well. And now his latest feature film, Psycho Goreman, follows Mimi and Luke, who are both siblings who unwittingly resurrect an ancient alien overlord. Using a magical amulet, they force the monster to obey their childish whims and accidentally attract a rogues gallery of intergalactic assassins to small-town suburbia. I fucking love Psycho Goreman. I absolutely love this movie. I had a fucking blast watching this. Like, this was totally my shit. Like, I adored the fuck out of this movie. The film is kind of like a mix of childhood nostalgia, and what I mean by that is that it pays homage to a lot of, like, TV shows and movies such as like Power Rangers, Transformers, even like Disney Channel originals. I kind of got a little bit of that vibe watching this movie, mixed with like sleazy 80s gore films. You know, it's basically like those two genres of films, which are very different, combined together into this one just wonderful piece of entertainment. And yeah, it could not work any better. It captures the feeling of watching like a late 90s, early 2000s Saturday morning cartoon, if that makes any sense. Like, this honestly feels like something that could possibly play on the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon. Like, it has the same exact, you know, just structure and formula, and you know, the way it's filmed is very similar to those films as well. But like I said, it blends very well together. This is easily a movie idea that could have could have not worked. You know, this has all the signs of something just simply not working. But somehow, almost every decision that was made in this film is perfect. Like, it's just, everything turned out great, in my opinion, you know, at least. You know, just the characters, the casting, the acting, especially from the little girl Mimi and her father, like, those are my two favorite characters in the whole film. They fucking killed it. It has a really just great script and a really fun concept that just could not have been executed better, in my opinion. Like, everything, all of the aspects in this film just came together really, really nicely. One thing that I especially loved about this film is how it uses practical effects with all of the characters and all the creatures in the film, because there is a lot of that. And, you know, I mentioned back how the film kind of reminded me a lot of Power Rangers, and so a lot of the characters in this film are, you know, they look exactly the same as that. They're practical effects or people in suits, and it works so well, and I love that they did that. You know, I love how they used practical effects in this movie, and they used that to the best advantage. And not only that, but the practical effects look fucking amazing. Like, I loved every character in this movie. I thought looked great, and it fit their characters so well. And the practical effects, like I said, are also kind of what helps capture, you know, the feeling of watching a late 90s, early 2000s Saturday morning cartoon, or watching a show like Power Rangers. It feels and sounds like something that shouldn't work, but it does. This is one of those movies where the second it started, I was just absorbed, you know, into the world of this film. And, you know, the movie has a perfect runtime. Even the runtime's fucking perfect. It has a runtime of 95 minutes, which is not too short, not too long. It's just right. The first time I looked at my phone during this movie, it was already an hour in, and I had no idea that an hour went by when I was watching this. That's kind of how much I was absorbed into watching this movie and how much fun I was having while watching it. But yeah, I especially love the character of Psycho Goreman himself. I thought his design was fucking badass. He not only looked really cool, but he's a really interesting character with a really interesting character arc. The film is about him befriending like these two little kids who they're just kind of fucking around it basically, while this guy is just an evil overlord who's trying to take over the world essentially. But what made this movie so special was just this, you know, the relationship between Psycho Goreman and these children. You know, they just have a really great dynamic going. A good amount of this movie consists of, you know, the two kid characters in Psycho Goreman as they go out and do like all these crazy antics, and, you know, they just basically fuck around. And there's a little subplot of these intergalactic assassins who are trying to get Psycho Goreman back to his initial task of, you know, destroying the world. It's just such a fun movie. It also somehow captures those moments of like watching a film like The Iron Giant or E.T., you know, a film about an outsider coming into, you know, our world and befriending, you know, these kids, and these kids showing them how our world works, and they have no idea how this world works, and, you know, they're not meant to be a part of our world, but they somehow become attached to our world and, you know, our world's characters. I was just really surprised by the amount of heart that this film has. You know, there's a lot of really wholesome moments and a lot of just really sweet moments, and it was really surprising to see this in a film like this, you know, where at its heart, at its core, it is a kid's film. You know, it is literally made like a kid's film, like something that would appear on the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon. It's literally that. It's exactly that. The only difference is that there's some gory shit in here. There's a lot of gory shit, and there's, you know, some adult undertones that in this film that would not make it onto, you know, the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon. And that's what I like about it, is that the film took that initiative to be a film like that, to be a kid's film at heart, but to also feature, you know, some blood and gore. Like, if I was 12 years old, this would probably be my favorite movie of all time. Like, if this movie came out when I was a kid, I would fucking love this thing. I would be obsessed with it. It does such a great job at capturing that same feeling of watching those movies and capturing nostalgia. And again, that's all thanks to the characters and the practical effects and, you know, all the gory moments in the film. And there's quite a few in here. Also, I forgot to mention how funny this movie is. Like, this movie's generally really fucking funny. There are so many parts where I was laughing out loud. You know, the dad, again, has some really, really great lines in here. Mimi's just a really fun character. Like, I loved her character in this movie. She's so much fun. But yeah, there's just a lot of really interesting moments in this film that are genuinely really funny. And a lot of great lines, too. Some excellent writing in this movie. It kind of brought back this feeling that I've been missing and I've been craving, you know, of watching, you know, a children's film of this sort, if that makes any sense. Like, I haven't really felt this way since I would watch, you know, Power Rangers, or when I would watch something like The Iron Giant or E.T. or even like Terminator 2 or something along those lines. But yeah, I loved Psycho Goreman. This movie was so much fun. I can tell that this is a film that's going to go under a lot of people's radar, and I just ask a lot of you, if this movie sounds interesting to you, please check it out. It's well worth your time. Overall, I would probably give Psycho Goreman a 9 out of 10. It's definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. It's up there. Also, I forgot to mention, Rich Evans is in this film. Rich Evans from Red Letter Media has a little cameo in this film. Yeah, I just, you know, that just made the movie so much more better, just having Rich Evans in it. Like, well, why the fuck is he in here? Who cares? But yeah, so Psycho Goreman, loved it. Willy's Wonderland. And that's it. And yeah, that's kind of what I thought about the two movies. That's kind of all I have to say as of for this video. Thank you for watching, and
like,
subscribe
to
all my videos.
Don't forget
and,
to
on Instagram.
to like,
subscribe,
Twitter,
also to all my videos. And
Twitter,
don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Twitter is now on Letterboxd. Also, the Letterboxd is now on the Letterboxd.